Curtis, 50 Cent, Jackson has never been the kind of man who fades quietly into a highlight reel. Every time the world assumes he is finished, 50 Cent walks back into the room with a bigger check, a louder headline, and a smile that says the game is still his. And in the summer of 2026, that grin has never looked more dangerous. Because what 50 Cent just did in Las Vegas is not a comeback. It is a coronation. And the man he embarrassed in the process happens to be the one rapper the industry swore he could never touch, Shawn, Jay-Z, Carter. Let that sink in. The kid from South Jamaica, Queens, who was once written off as a mixtape ghost, has quietly built an empire that Jay-Z is now watching from the cheap seats. And 50 Cent is making sure everybody knows it. The loudest headline out of his camp is a Las Vegas residency titled and club, staged inside the PH Live Theater at Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino. On paper it looks like another rapper cashing a Vegas check. In reality it is a $15 million mic drop aimed straight at the throne of hip-hop's so-called billionaire. 6 shows. $15 million. And a stage rigged with enough pyrotechnics to make the Sphere look like a school play. The calendar could not have lined up better because Las Vegas during the New Year window is the single most crowded piece of real estate in American entertainment. Every whale, every influencer, every A-list husband dragging a +1 is inside a 2-mile radius of the Strip. And 50 Cent booked the loudest room in the middle of all of it. That is not a coincidence. That is a strategy older than the man himself. Curtis Jackson does not walk into a market. He annexes it. Sources close to the deal describe the numbers as staggering. $15 million for 6 nights places 50 Cent in the same paycheck bracket as the pop titans who usually monopolize the Vegas skyline. And remember, this is a rapper who was told 20 years ago that his sound would not survive the decade. Every executive who bet against Curtis Jackson is now writing him checks. Every doubter is now buying tickets. The man they underestimated became the ceiling they cannot break. But here is where the story turns cinematic. Because while 50 Cent is stacking Vegas paper, the shadow of Jay-Z is refusing to leave the frame. The Cold War between these two New York legends has never officially ended. It has only shifted terrain. And 50 Cent, in his own surgical way, keeps reminding the world that the terrain now belongs to him. Rewind for a moment. The friction began in 1999 when a hungry 50 Cent dropped How to Rob, a track that name-checked Jay-Z alongside a roster of untouchables. Jay-Z answered on its hot with a single dismissive bar that pretended to erase him. The industry called it playful. The streets called it something else. And 50 Cent never forgot. Not the line. Not the tone. Not the message underneath it, that Curtis Jackson was not welcome at the grown-ups table. Fast forward through 2 decades of diamond plaques, arena tours, and boardroom conquests, and 50 Cent has flipped the seating chart. He is not knocking on the door of the elite. He is the one deciding who gets past the velvet rope. And that reversal is what makes his recent behavior online so devastating. Because when 50 Cent posts a meme, he is not clowning. He is legislating. The meme in question dropped in the spring of 2026 and it detonated the internet in under an hour. 50 Cent superimposed Jay-Z's face onto the invisible predator from the classic action franchise, and paired the image with a lyric Jay-Z himself wrote years before his marriage to Beyoncé, a lyric referencing a young woman that the culture has spent years politely ignoring. 50 Cent did not politely ignore it. He printed it, framed it, and hung it in the algorithm's front window. The reaction was seismic. Hip-hop timelines split down the middle. One camp screamed that 50 Cent had finally crossed a line. The other camp, the larger camp, screamed that he had simply said what everybody had been whispering. And Jay-Z, the man who built his brand on strategic silence, once again chose not to answer. Which in the theater of 50 Cent is the same as forfeiting the round. What makes the moment so bruising is the context. Because 50 Cent has never needed a diss track to embarrass Jay-Z. He has done it with spreadsheets. He has done it with television ratings. He has done it with ownership stakes in professional sports franchises. And that is a story the mainstream press has consistently underplayed. Consider the receipts. Over the past 2 years, 50 Cent has quietly built partnerships with the Houston Rockets, the Sacramento Kings, the Houston Texans, the Houston Astros, the Indiana Pacers, the Orlando Magic, the Washington Commanders, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. That is 8 professional franchises and counting. Courtside seats are the least of it. Curtis Jackson is inside the ownership rooms. He is signing paper with billionaires. He is at the table Jay-Z once claimed was reserved for him alone. And here is the twist that reportedly infuriated the Roc Nation founder. During the run-up to the Super Bowl a few years back, Jay-Z was said to have quietly pushed to keep 50 Cent off the halftime stage during the Dr. Dre and Eminem showcase. 50 Cent still made it on that stage, hanging upside down for one of the most memorable cameos of the night. But the conversation about who tried to block him has never really died. And 50 Cent, being 50 Cent, refuses to let it die. Because how does the NFL have an issue with a performance from a rapper who is now a business partner with multiple NFL franchises? The math does not add up. And the man doing the math is Curtis Jackson. That contradiction is the reason 50 Cent keeps circling Jay-Z in interviews. The frustration is not musical. It is procedural. It is the frustration of a man who feels he was blocked from a room he already owned the keys to. And every time he says it out loud, the crowd nods a little harder. Meanwhile, the empire keeps expanding on autopilot. 50 Cent's liquor operation, Sire Spirits, has moved from novelty cognac to a full portfolio play. Branson and Le Chemin du Roi are already global. A tequila line is next. And the entire company is being groomed as a generational handoff to his son. Curtis Jackson is not building a brand. He is building an inheritance. Then there is the touring machine. Because the Residency did not come out of nowhere. It came off the back of the Final Lap Tour, a global run that grossed north of $100 million and moved nearly 2 million tickets across 4 continents. That is not a legacy act coasting on nostalgia. That is a headliner in his physical prime doing arena numbers in his mid-40s. Curtis Jackson himself has admitted that touring at this stage feels different, the pressure of promoting new records is gone, the audience has grown up alongside him, and now the fans arrive with their spouses, their teenagers, and their wine cellars. The kids who danced to In the Club in a college dorm in 2003 are now the CFOs sending 50 Cent to a private jet at midnight. And it is that audience, the grown, moneyed, brand-loyal core, that makes the Vegas Residency a printing press. Because when you sell out 6 theater dates in Vegas, you are not selling tickets. You are selling a pilgrimage. And 50 Cent has spent 20 years training that audience to make the trip. Which brings us to the second half of the empire, the television machine. Because if the music paid for the house, the small screen paid for the compound. 50 Cent's flagship series Power, launched on Starz, is now the anchor of one of the most successful drama universes on cable. The original show ran 6 seasons. Then came Power Book 2, Ghost, extending the story through the Tar St. Patrick arc. Then Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, rewinding to the origin of the character fans thought they already knew. Then Power Book 4, Force, sending Tommy Egan into an entirely new city and an entirely new criminal ecology. 4 series. 1 universe. Millions of subscribers. And behind all of it, 1 executive producer signing every check. Curtis Jackson has done for Starz what Tony Soprano did for HBO. He turned a mid-tier premium cable brand into appointment television. He proved that a rapper could not only headline a scripted drama but architect an entire creative empire from the producer's chair. And he did it while the traditional Hollywood establishment was still asking whether he could act. The next chapter is where the story detonates all over again. Because 50 Cent has just unveiled the first official poster for Power, Legacy, a project that will reportedly reunite Tommy Egan and Tar St. Patrick in New York City. That is the fusion event fans have been begging for since 2020. Two of the most magnetic characters in modern cable drama. One skyline. One final collision. And 50 Cent hinted, with the same conspiratorial smirk he wore during the Jay-Z meme drop, that Power, Legacy may be the last spin-off he ever produces in this universe. Read that sentence again. The last spin-off. The final chapter. The end of the franchise that turned a rapper into a mogul. If that timeline holds, Power, Legacy is expected to hit screens in 2027, closing a run that will have shaped the streaming era in ways the industry has not yet fully absorbed. Curtis Jackson is not just walking away from a hit show. He is walking away on his own terms, which is something almost no showrunner in modern television has ever managed to do. Most franchises die of exhaustion. This one is being retired at the peak. But do not mistake the exit for a slowdown. Because before the credits roll on the universe, there are still major pieces in motion. Power Book 3, Raising Kanan is heading into its final season in 2026, giving fans one last window into the youth of the character they thought they had already met. And in the shadows, 50 Cent is developing Power Origins, a prequel series that will reportedly go back to the beginning, to the streets, the school hallways, and the friendship that eventually became the myth. Ghost and Tommy, Before the War. Before the Wire. Before the Crown. And this is where the real genius shows up. Because while the industry was busy debating whether 50 Cent could survive as a producer, he was quietly assembling the most vertically integrated portfolio in hip-hop. Music. Television. Film. Liquor. Sports. Boxing. Real estate. Studios. Streaming. Curtis Jackson does not have a career. He has a conglomerate. Consider his Shreveport studio operation. When the state incentives shifted, most producers packed up and ran to Atlanta. 50 Cent doubled down. He leased studio space, built out editing bays, and even converted half of his post-production floor into an artificial intelligence lab because he saw where the technology was heading before most of Hollywood had finished arguing about it. Tyler Perry personally walked him through the emerging virtual production tools that are already making traditional soundstages obsolete. That is not a rapper dabbling in film. That is a chairman scouting the next decade. And the boxing chapter, often overlooked, reveals the same instinct. When Floyd Mayweather stepped away from promotions to serve a short sentence, 50 Cent quietly absorbed the entire fighter roster. Yuriorkis Gamboa. James Kirkland. Andre Dirrell. Billy Dibb. He built a stable, promoted cards, and learned the ugliest lesson in prize fighting, that fighters are loyal to whoever hands them the check between fights. He walked away wiser, not bitter. And that lesson is why he now structures every partnership he touches around long-term equity, not short-term flash. Which is exactly the philosophy Jay-Z used to be famous for. And it is exactly the philosophy 50 Cent has now weaponized against him. Because here is the uncomfortable truth the hip-hop press has been dancing around all summer. The billionaire narrative that once defined Jay-Z has plateaued. His last major cultural swing, the Super Bowl halftime empire built through Roc Nation, is still profitable but no longer explosive. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is negotiating team partnerships in 3 professional leagues, launching a Vegas residency, releasing television, and taunting the man who once tried to gatekeep him from his own stage. If this were a scoreboard, Curtis Jackson is up by 20 in the fourth quarter and Jay-Z is arguing with the referee. And that is precisely why the Predator meme cut so deep. It was not the joke. It was the timing. 50 Cent posted it during the exact week that his residency numbers went public. He was not punching up. He was punching from the penthouse. And Jay-Z, sitting in his own penthouse, had to watch the culture howl at a meme he could not respond to without looking small. The comments section split into a civil war within hours. Team 50 Cent argued that Curtis Jackson had finally shattered the invisible ceiling that Jay-Z's PR machine had installed around him. Team Jay-Z argued that 50 Cent was punching at a man too dignified to answer. But the numbers on the meme, the shares, the reposts, the reaction videos, told a story neither side wanted to admit. The culture was not defending Jay-Z. The culture was laughing. That single afternoon reframed the entire rivalry. Because in hip-hop, silence is only powerful when it looks like restraint. The moment silence starts to look like retreat, the throne wobbles. And Jay-Z's silence in the face of 50 Cent's meme campaign has started to look like something the culture has never associated with him before, a man who is unsure how to respond. Meanwhile, 50 Cent keeps stacking receipts. He is closing the year with a Vegas residency, a new season of Kanan, a Fresh Spirits launch, a Power, Legacy rollout, and a rumored film project connected to the Den of Thieves franchise that will drop early in the new cycle. His name is currently attached to more scripts, more soundstages, and more brand partnerships than any active rapper in America. And he does all of it with the same unblinking grin that he wore in the How to Rob video 27 years ago. That is the terrifying part for his rivals. Because 50 Cent is not evolving out of hunger. He is evolving out of habit. The man who once had to prove he could survive is now proving he can outlast. And there is a difference. Survival is loud. Longevity is quiet. And Curtis Jackson has mastered both. Look at the way he framed his last tour. Instead of chasing the streaming charts, he pivoted the entire run into a 20-year anniversary celebration for Get Rich or Die Tryin'. It sounded like a nostalgia play. It was actually a positioning play. Because by branding the tour as a milestone, he forced every music publication in the Western Hemisphere to reprint the story of an album that sold over 10 million copies and reshaped the industry's economics. He turned his own catalog into free publicity. That is not the move of a rapper. That is the move of a media strategist. And the sports partnerships operate on the same logic. Every time 50 Cent stands courtside next to a billionaire owner, he is not just enjoying a game. He is being photographed. He is being positioned. He is being absorbed into the visual grammar of American ownership. And every one of those photographs functions as a shot at the old guard, including Jay-Z, who spent decades trying to be the only rapper in that frame. The fifth quarter, as 50 Cent calls it, is not a bar concept. It is a business philosophy. He builds social lounges inside professional arenas so that fans stay in the building long after the final buzzer. He extends the event. He extends the spending. He extends the attention. And in a media economy where attention is the only real currency, Curtis Jackson has become an infrastructure play. He does not chase eyeballs. He builds the rooms the eyeballs cannot leave. That is why the residency in Vegas is not a one-off. It is a prototype. If In Club performs the way early ticket sales suggest, expect an extended run in 2027. Expect a Miami version. Expect a New York version. Expect an international leg through London, Dubai, and Riyadh, where the sovereign entertainment funds have been circling hip-hop's top-tier residencies for the past 18 months. 50 Cent has already been photographed at private meetings connected to at least 2 of those markets. The map is being drawn as we speak. And every step of that map is a step further away from the shadow of Shawn Carter. That is the story nobody in the industry wants to say out loud, so allow this narration to say it plainly. The center of gravity in hip-hop's business class has shifted. Jay-Z built the blueprint. 50 Cent is building the sequel. And the sequel is outgrossing the original. The revelation lands harder when you factor in the audience. 50 Cent's fan base has aged into disposable income. The same listeners who sang along to Many Men in a College Dorm are now signing mortgages, corporate contracts, and private jet leases. When 50 Cent announces a Vegas residency, they do not just buy tickets. They buy suites. They buy tables. They buy bottles from his own liquor line. Every ticket becomes 3 revenue streams. And multiplied across 6 sold-out nights, the number gets ugly fast. Now stack that against the Jay-Z model. Roc Nation is still a heavyweight, no question. But the demographic gap has widened. Jay-Z's younger listeners have drifted toward newer artists. His older listeners have drifted toward the artists their peers are still talking about at dinner. And more, that conversation is centered on Curtis Jackson. The rivalry has always been about more than music. It has been about who gets to define the endgame of a hip-hop career. For 2 decades, the answer was Jay-Z, the mogul, the marriage, the sports agency, the champagne. In 2026, the answer is being rewritten in real time. And it is being rewritten by a man who used to be dismissed as the loud one. If you want a single image that captures the shift, look at the promotional artwork for the Vegas residency. Curtis Jackson stands centered, arms folded, framed by a cascade of lights that spell out the phrase "in club." He is not smiling. He is not posing. He is presiding. That is the body language of a man who no longer needs to prove anything. And it is the body language that has quietly become the most feared silhouette in hip-hop's boardrooms. The final beat of the year will play out on stage in Vegas as the calendar flips into January. 6 nights. $15 million. A packed house of the exact demographic that Madison Avenue has been trying to reach for a decade. Cameras rolling. Streaming deals waiting. And somewhere, on a private jet or a private terrace, Jay-Z will scroll past the clips and decide whether to say anything at all. If history is any guide, he will not. And 50 Cent will interpret that silence exactly the way the culture is starting to interpret it. As a scoreboard. As a receipt. As the sound of a legend who used to define the ceiling now watching a rival redraw it. So where does Curtis Jackson go from here? The answer is everywhere, all at once. The residency. The tequila launch. The Kanan finale. The Power, Legacy rollout. The Power Origins prequel. The Den of Thieves sequel. The sports partnerships. The overseas expansion. The AI production lab in Shreveport. The rumored biopic. The whispered documentary. The undisclosed streaming deal that industry insiders say is currently on the desk of at least 2 major platforms and will reportedly rewrite the terms of talent-owned content when it is finally announced. That is not a schedule. That is a takeover. And that is the reason the Jay-Z rivalry has resurfaced with such heat. Because a takeover of that scale demands a foil. And in the theater of hip-hop, there is only one foil worth casting opposite Curtis Jackson. The one man whose crown he has been circling since 1999. The story that opened with a $15 million residency closes with a much larger question. Not whether 50 Cent is winning. That answer is already on the marquee. The question is whether Jay-Z will finally step into the frame, or whether he will remain the silent shadow while 50 Cent finishes rewriting the map of hip-hop's business class. Because here is the final truth the culture keeps missing. 50 Cent does not need Jay-Z to lose in order to win. The Vegas checks clear either way. The power universe closes either way. The sports partnerships expand either way. Curtis Jackson wins in silence and he wins louder in noise. He wins whether Jay-Z answers the meme or not. He wins whether the culture crowns him or not. He wins because he built an ecosystem that no longer requires permission from the old guard. And that is the ultimate mic drop. Not the residency. Not the 15 million. Not the meme. The mic drop is the fact that a rapper the industry once tried to bury in 2000 is now, in 2026, running a portfolio bigger than the men who tried to bury him. From the Queen's sidewalks that nearly buried him to the boardrooms that now bow to him, 50 Cent has done the impossible twice. He survived. And then he outlasted. And now, from a Las Vegas stage lit up like a coronation, he is doing the thing the culture never thought he could pull off. He is closing the chapter on his own terms, while the man he was told he could never touch watches from the wings. The residency lifts off at the end of December. The Power, Legacy rollout follows in the new cycle. The Kanan finale is already loaded into the schedule. The Empire is not slowing down. The Empire is compounding. And the man behind it is grinning the same grin he wore the day he first walked into a studio with a bulletproof vest and a business plan. Whether you love him or you resent him, Curtis Jackson has earned his moment. And the moment is not a residency. The moment is the coronation of a career that refused to end when the industry demanded it. The moment is a rapper turned mogul turned architect of an entire cultural economy. The moment is 50 Cent doing what he has done for a quarter of a century, walking into the room the gatekeepers locked and casually installing his own door. Drop your take below. Do you believe 50 Cent has finally overtaken Jay-Z as hip-hop's ultimate mogul, or is the crown still sitting in Brooklyn? And which chapter of the empire do you want unpacked next, the sports takeover, the AI studio in Shreveport, or the untold story of the Power, Origins prequel that could rewrite everything you thought you knew about Ghost and Tommy? Because the empire is still expanding, the receipts are still stacking, and Curtis Jackson is not done rewriting the map. Not by a long shot.